Could you please say your name?
My name is Mark Pogrebinsky.
Could you tell us about where you were born and describe your childhood before the war?
I was born on December 1st, 1935 in the city Kyiv. Right now it is the capital of Ukraine. And I was born in a typical Jewish family. My parents were the first generation in their families who moved to big cities. Before the Tsar regime, Jewish people lived in a small settlement called in Yiddish shtetls, and they lived under very big government restrictions. They cannot move to big cities, have not the right to move to big cities. They had not right to educate their children in colleges and universities. They had not right to own land, but they have a lot of requirements at that time. They required to pay big contributions to Tsar government of all levels. They required to send their boys to Russian military to serve for 25 years. And at that time, Jewish people very enthusiastic met the revolution 1970, what lifted the all restrictions. My mother family lived in a settlement, shtetl, called Chernobyl, a name what right now know all world, the place of the biggest disaster in world history, man-made explosion on Chernobyl nuclear station. My father's family lived west from Kyiv, and both families were from big, both parents were from big families. In my mother were 7 kids, in my father's family it was 9 kids. My mother's family came from was a very poor family. Her father was killed on the time of the Civil War in 1990. So my grandmother, working as seamstress, take care about 7 kids. And when they became at age 13, 16, each of them, one by one, moved to Kyiv. My father's side, grandfather, had a business. He made leather from animal skins, then cut from these sheets blanks for shoes, and then he sold these blanks to shoemakers. My father moved to Kyiv at age approximately 25, my mother at age 13, 14, and this was the city where they met each other, and in 1933 they married. After they married, they received a room in a building which was before part of Kirillovsky women's monastery. So the room was very small. It is a room where lived before nuns. It had not kitchen, toilets, water, showers. It was just a long corridor, a lot of doors, and next to each door, I remember, it was a table on which stay a primus. It is a one-stove furnace for preparing food, and for fuel they used kerosene. I remember next to our building was a small kids playground. I remember myself with some kids playing all around, and I cannot even recall that we had some kind of toys to play, just running. Some kids had, I remember one child has a car with a crankshaft, and he drives this car. We all run around behind this car. In the same neighborhood was a one-story building in what was the kindergarten which I attended. My father worked on a factory as a sewing machine mechanic. My mother worked in factory for kids' dresses as a staff. And I remember myself many times that my mother took me to the factory. Probably it was on weekend or maybe late when the kindergarten was did not work. And I remember a big room, big tables, and where they cut fabrics for the clothes, what they sell in this factory. When I was 5, probably, it was before the war begins, I was admitted to a musical school, to a class to violin. Unfortunately, because of the war, I never had a chance to take any musical classes in future.
Could you please say the names of your parents and grandparents?
Имена бабушки, дедушки, имена скажи, твоей мамы, папы, бабушки и дедушки.
My father's name is Isaac Pogrebinsky. My mother's name is Bernia Kaminsky, and middle, and then Pogrebinsky.
What was it like being Jewish before the war?
As a child, I did not remember too much about this question, but I recall conversation at my parents' home and talking that there was no big anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union before the war. There was Jewish schools in city where we lived, and education were in this school on Yiddish. There was Yiddish language common to at home. My parents spoke between them on Yiddish, and when came to us grandparents, they always talk on Yiddish language.
What did you know about World War II?
Подожди, папа, про школы скажи. Какие были школы тогда? Еврейские школы.
For my family, the Second World War begins long time before German crossed Soviet borders. In 1939, Hitler and Stalin signed so-called agreement, non-aggressive agreement, so-called Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, and under which they divided area and influence. And under this agreement, Germans had the right to occupy big portion of West Poland, and Russia, Stalin had the right to occupy East Ukraine and the Baltic country, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Romania, and even more. In 1939, my father was called to military and was part of the units which invaded Poland. And I remember that he told that at some times they have even resistance from Poland, not big from military, but from people of Poland. And my father told an episode what happened with him and his soldiers when they came to a barber to shave, and he shaved them, and after this he poisoned them, and after this their face was swelled. At the time of the invasion in Poland happened a car accident in which my father was involved, and it took effect of his life, all rest his life. The car in what they ride overturned, and he received a damage of his spine. After this he was in hospital and then commissioned and returned home. At the time when he was in military, I remember me and my mother sitting alone at home and she reading letter from him as he is taking his service in military.
Where were you when the Germans invaded?
In summer 1941, my family went on vacation to Ruzhin, the shtetl where lived my father's parents. It was usual at that time people spend their vacation on the villages where they came from, because there was no big vacation industry at that time. And it is beautiful places. I remember it is Ruzhin surrounded with a big forest, gardens next to each house, nice river, and it's a good time. Many families from all over the country came on vacation to these shtetls. For at that time, together with us on vacation was my father's sister with her daughter and husband from Moscow. I remember some episode from my vacation in Ruzhin. One day my grandfather took me to a synagogue, and I remember this synagogue. It looks not as we know these synagogues right now. It looks more like a warehouse with long, big benches in it. I remember myself one time playing next to the house, and suddenly I saw a passenger car staying not far from grandparents' house, and I went to this car and I asked the driver today to give me a ride, and he told, okay, sit down in the car. So without any permission we drove to the river to wash the car. The car's passengers was very unusual in big cities, but in village it is. He brought a big boss from the city at that time. So at that time my parents found that the child disappeared, and everybody run all around the house, the village, looking where I am. Finally, we arrived back, and I was given a lesson that I need to talk parents before leaving. I remember our family one time on the boat on the river. It is probably was close to evening, and women's singing a very popular at the time song «Так будьте здоровы, живите богато, а мы уезжаем додому до хаты». In English it is a sound «Stay healthy and wealthy, but we living to our home, for our home». Little bit later, my father's sister left Ruzhin, and my father left too. Probably he left for work. He had a shorter vacation that time. And then happened the war. It was in a village. The information was very short. Ruzhin, it is located in remote area, so no transportation to train station, no transportation to Kiev. So the first guess is to live and return home, but how can you do this? No buses, no transportation to go. So I remember my mother many times crying, asking at home, grandparents' home. It was big discussion how to live for home, because the government in the collective farm in Ruzhin had very little number of cars, and some of them were taken to the military to serve immediately. But at some day, probably weeks after it happened, I remember us on the truck. It was a big truck, a lot of benches on it, and many people in this truck. And we going from Ruzhin. We left Ruzhin. And sometime later, a car which comes the other way stopped us. And I remember as a child, but I remember well the conversation of these two drivers. Driver asked where are you going? And our driver told, we are going to Popelnya. Popelnya, it is a big train station. This is a place where should go trains to Kiev, to many cities. And he told us, don't go. Germans all day bomb Popelnya. You see red skies. This is Popelnya on fire. No trains in and out. So our driver made a U-turn, and we at night returned to our grandparents' house. And it's after this it took long time, a lot of discussion, a lot of tears was, I remember, have to look into the way how return home, because the Germans all time closer and closer, and Ruzhin located between Kiev and the Poland border with Poland, so much closer to Germans we were found itself. So I remember at some moment my mother and some more families decide to leave Ruzhin and find own way to Kiev. So I don't remember all picture of our journey, but I remember us working on the local roads. I remember forests. I remember us staying in some houses, villages in houses, probably it is at night we stayed. And I remember even in some moment we heard some shooting and people told that Germans, paratroopers, somewhere close to us located. We saw and were joined at some moment with our soldiers, I remember, and finally I believe that it was beginning of September, we reached Kiev. We found our father in Kiev, joined him, and then I remember some moments of our living this short time in Kiev. It is I remember the sign of the sirens were at the time when Germans began bombing the city. The sirens sound and we ran to bomb shelters. It's some kind of basement where with many benches where we sit. I remember some time when we left the bomb shelters, we saw many people running and we asked, where are you going? And they told that Soviet artillery shot down a German's plane and the pilot jumped from parachute and somewhere close to the place where we were, and people ran to see the German's pilot.
What were your options for escape and who did you evacuate with?
At that time, we do not have big options to escape, to evacuate from Kiev. All decisions made the government. They decide at what time you will leave, and for regular people it was the lowest priority because the first was military, then factories, all. But I remember at one day father came and told, we are going to train station Petrovka and we will leave Kiev. We went to this train station and it was we boarded to a cattle car. It is a car for transportation of animals. It has a big wide doors from both sides, and from left and right it was added shelves so more people will be in this car. We evacuated together with two father sisters, Rahil and Olga. Both they just a few months before married, and both were pregnant. At that time we lived, my mother was very sick, so, and my father, as I told, he has big spine problems, and he wear the leather corset with steel strips, so we did not have with us any things to take. And this is at one time we was hooked to a train. It was a train what evacuated manufacturing factory Leninskaya Kuznitsa. And we left Kiev. Because of its priority of our train was very low, we moved very slow. Many times we stopped, and I remember few episodes of our evacuation. At one moment we stopped aside. The train has only two lines, but to give the way for a train with higher priority, there was in some places added an additional lane, so we took the additional lane and give the way for a hospital. Hospital because we know thought that it is a hospital because he has red crosses on it. And then we moved, and later, sometime later, we came to a station, Bakhmach. We found that this train was completely bombed. We saw all around killed soldiers. We see people's bodies, and my eyes still have the horrible picture. Long time later, probably took few months, we came to city Zelenodolsk on Volga River. And we were given an address where to stay. It was winter. It was very cold, a lot of snow, and we was absolutely unprepared to stay in these conditions. I believe that in Zelenodolsk, Olga gave birth to Irina, my cousin.
How did you end up in Uzbekistan, and what was it like living there?
I believe that when we came to Zelenodolsk, nobody waited for us in Zelenodolsk, and nobody told that Zelenodolsk is the end point to what we are going. And few reasons stayed behind this. Our decision to move to Uzbekistan. The first, it was the decision that we elderly had not place to work. And somebody told them in Uzbekistan, the government evacuate a lot of factories. In Uzbekistan, they open many hospitals where they need people to work in. And this is maybe one of reasons why we moved to Uzbekistan. The second is we were completely unprepared to live in the cold weather. We have not worn dresses. And next reason, probably, I believe that it was a decision of the government, local government, to move people to like a workforce to Uzbekistan. And because simple people at that time have not possibility to buy a ticket somewhere to go. They have a permission from government to go to these places. So probably it was some decision of the government why we found itself in Uzbekistan. And probably in beginning 1942, our family came to Uzbekistan and we were given a room to stay in suburb of city Tashkent. All family stayed together and adults begin immediately working. My father began working on a factory which made uniform for military. My father's sisters all went to work to hospitals. And sometime later, they father's another sister, Genia from Moscow, found us. She lived in Tashkent and with her daughter Lucia, 3 years, and her husband was in military. And at that time, the family made a decision to move a little bit closer to their work, and we moved to Tashkent. Especially at that time, there was no schedule or time frame for work. People worked as long as they needed. I remember that my father, for weeks, stayed on the work and did not come to home. And I remember that my one father's sister, Olga, working at a hospital, one of her duties was to help disabled soldiers what commissioned from the hospital to go to their homes. And so she took a group of disabled people, some without legs, hands, who were not able to move by itself, and help them to reach their homes. So she, sometimes a month or more, were out of home. And we child stay at home alone without any adults. We lived moving to Tashkent, we lived in a room, a big room, I remember, without any furniture. We slept on the floor. And I remember like an episode when we kids were at home and a man come in and asked me, "Where's your parents?" And I told, "On work." And he told me, "Come with me and close the gate." And I went with him. And then I was told that it was a burglar. He found that nothing to take, and parents told me, never go with these people, stay at home, let him go alone. As a child, I remember when we lived in Tashkent, and at the time of the war, because it was everything was limited, every person received his product card. It was a card which shows how many food you will receive in the month, how many bread, how many sugar you will receive. Everything was very limited for people. And to receive this, what was in the card, you need registered to a store, product store. So bread we received from the store where my father worked. So as a child, it was my duties to take the bread from my father. and I went to his factory. It was up hills, and pick up the bread, and I remember myself running down the hills with a speed was faster than maybe a car, because I afraid that somebody will stop me and take away this bread. In Tashkent, I began expecting my health problems. I remember when I wake up in the morning, my eyelids were stuck with pus, and to open my eyes in the morning, someone need wet my eyes with tea until I will be able to open them. In Tashkent, I began attending this school. And I remember this school because at 7 years. I remember this school, it is a room, benches, one table, no books, no notebooks, no pencils and pens, nothing. I remember that in this school we received tea, and to receive tea we need to bring with us a cap. And I remember a horrible episode at that time when a small child on the floor in hysterica, and because somebody stole his cup, and he cannot receive tea. Some time later, I stopped attending this school.
When did you return to Kiev? What was it like when you returned?
I remember one day, one evening, my mother and father's sister were on the streets, and suddenly we hear a big woman cheering "Hurrah!" And finally, my mother and father's sister came in and told, Soviet army liberate Kiev. It was November 6, 1943. And after this, all discussion were around how to return to home and when it will be. And finally, it was too close to a year, we had a decision to return home. At the time of the war, people do not have the right leave their work and take a ticket on the train. Everything for you made decision for everything made the government, and for everything you need have a permission. So it took a year. Finally, my parents, father's sisters received permission from government from their work, and for permission to return to Kiev. I remember that it took a long time. We many times changed the trains. I remember once we stayed in city Saratov, and it was a big field where hundreds and hundreds families on the grass around, like you can see some warm day in the beaches, and waiting for train to go to the next point. And on September 1944, my family arrived to Kiev. When we came to Kiev, we found that the room in which live my family is occupied by the nuns from the monastery, women's monastery. And for some reason, our government decided not to take away, not evict them from these rooms. So we found itself homeless. Few days we stayed on my mother's brother Matvey home, and then my parents found in an old one-story house one empty room and a kitchen, and they found that people who lived before in this apartment went to Babi Yar, and they never will return, because you cannot occupy a room, an apartment which people can return. They will evict you from this apartment. So finally, after making some repairs, we moved in this apartment. Immediately, I began attending the school. I started school from the second grade, even I did not attend the first grade. And parents began immediately working in Kiev.
How did you find out about what happened to the rest of your family?
Short time after we came to Kiev, my father and his sisters made a trip to Ruzhin, where lived his grandparents and father's brother with his family, and the place where the war started for me and my mother. And they found that all their family was taken to in Ruzhin in ghetto when Germans captured Ruzhin, and they were killed. The first mass killing happened on September 10, 1941. And my grandfather, he was the last in the family who was killed. He was killed by my aunt classmate, who wrapped barbed wire around grandfather's body. He dragged them all the village and then killed. After this, my father, his sisters, and many people whose relatives were killed in Ruzhin at that day came to Ruzhin to pay tribute to who was killed here. On September 10, 1991, 1 month before I and my family immigrate to America, I and my aunt Musa, who lives right now in Germany, we took a trip to Ruzhin. We find all 4 mass graves were buried, all family, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, and 7 their kids. We say final goodbye to them.
What did you learn about Babi Yar?
Immediately after we returned to Kiev, we found that After Germans occupied Kiev, they took all Jewish people to Babi Yar. And on September 29 and 30, 33,000 Jewish people were killed in this place. Until 1980s, Soviet government did not told the truth about what happens in Babi Yar, that this was a place of big more killing of Jewish people. But beginning from the mid-70s, at the day of the killing, September 29, its first killing, beginning of the killing was, many Jewish people gathered at that place, had not approved by government meetings, and paid tribute to the people who was killed and buried in Babi Yar. And only in mid-80s, under the pressure from international governments, Soviet government installed a monument in this place in Babi Yar. And in mid-90s, to this monument was added a menorah. Big contribution to recognize Babi Yar as a place of mass killing of Jewish people made Ukrainian writer Anatoly Kuznetsov in his beautiful book about this Babi Yar, and Russian poet Evgeny Yevtushenko, who wrote a poem, Babi Yar.
Was your family religious?
My grandparents was religion people. They attended synagogue services on regular basis. My mother was 5 years when happened the October Revolution that declared that religion is an opium for people, and all kind of religion were prohibited. So she did not receive any religion education, and she was not a religion. My father, at the time of revolution, was 15 years, and he received his education in Jewish yeshiva, and he received the education including religion, and he attended synagogue. But when they moved in Kiev, there was not places to go for regular services. Kiev is a city, a home was for 300,000 Jewish people, and it has only one synagogue with probably 100 people can be in this synagogue. So people don't attend services on regular basis. But I well remember that at time of big Jewish holidays, Jewish people, tens and tens and tens thousands, came to the synagogue, to the streets all around were packed with Jewish. And I believe that it was more like a social and political move by Jewish people to show that Jewish people still exist, that they still Jewish and that they are still the power. So it was more like a social and political gathering, not like a religion.
What did you think about the German people and the Russian people?
It's not an easy question, especially after the war, 65, 70 years after the war. In Germany, right now lives the third and fourth generation of people who executed the Holocaust of Jewish people. I hate Hitler. I hate all people who helped him, people in Hitler's machine from the top to the bottom who helped him to execute this Holocaust of Jewish people only because they are Jewish. But right now, Germany condemned the Nazi. They take a law, declared the anti-Semitism and the Nazi regime and denying of Holocaust as a crime. Germany is one of two countries who still persecute people who guilty in war crimes and commit justice for them. German people financial continue helping victims of Holocaust. They became home for many Jewish people who emigrate from Soviet Union. So for me it's difficult to make guilty third and fourth generation of people whose grandparents or grandparents commit crime against Jewish people. And because of these big restrictions, legal, I believe that Germany will never be the place of something similar to what happens in the Second World War, similar Holocaust. Regarding Russians, my feeling is completely different, especially because it is very difficult for me. 56 years of my life I spent in Russia. I lived in Ukraine, Russia. I had thousands of good friends and co-workers, most of them Russians. But today Russia did not condemn Stalin and Communist Party who killed millions of their own people, including Jewish. Stalin killed Jewish and anti-fascist committee, the best Jewish people who helped him at the time of the World War II by going all around the world and collecting money to buy equipment and military what needs, including in America. And they and Stalin killed them. Stalin had, under Stalin time and communist, it begins government-sponsored anti-Semitism. And Stalin prepared a new genocide for people, Jewish people. He prepared deportation of all Jewish people in Far East, and only miracle stopped him from executing his decision. So my feeling about Russian is completely different. On this month, Russia celebrates 65 years of victory in the Second World War, and from permission of local government everywhere in Russia, in Moscow, were Stalin's pictures on the streets. On the parade, people carried his pictures, and this is a person who guilty for killing not just Jewish people, for killing at least 20 million total his own people. Stalin created so-called Gulag. This is similar to Germans' Hitler concentration camps for Jewish people. The difference between Gulag and Hitler's concentration camps that Hitler killed Jewish people immediately. Stalin created conditions for people that they died in this Gulag. And this is even more. And the worst, that Russia still did not condemn not Stalin, not the Communist Party, and has not any laws prohibited it.
How do you feel about the Soviet Union now?
I strongly believe that Soviet Union is the worst dictatorship in 20th century. Soviet Union responsible for killing between 20 and 60 million of their own people, different nationalities. Soviet Union used military power to occupy many countries, including Baltic countries, Poland, and many more. Soviet Union and they're responsible for spreading communist ideology all over the world, and it is a real cancer of 20th and 21st century. Soviet Union helped financially to many terrorist organizations, including Palestinian Liberation Organization with Yasser Arafat. They not just financial help them, they help them with weapons. They train these people, the biggest enemy of the Israel. And Soviet Union has, as I told before, created a system, Gulag, where their own people died in it.
Про евреев скажи, папа. Про евреев, про 5-ю графу.
Я не слышу.
5-я графа.
Oh, the Soviet Union had government organized anti-Semitism. So next.
What made you decide to immigrate to the United States?
Many reasons was why we decide to emigrate from Soviet Union. One of them, it is government-sponsored anti-Semitism. In Soviet Union, Jewish people have many restrictions to attend some school, colleges, universities. Jewish people cannot be hired by many high-tech companies. For Jewish people were set limits how many Jewish can work in the company, so no more than some limit. If we, in Germany, government to show Jewish required from them to wear a yellow David star. In Soviet Union, for us, it was a passport where the fifth line told what is our nationality. And everywhere you are going, you need to fill application to show your nationality. Even small kids, before the age when they received the passport 16 year, in their birth certificate, there was a line which tells nationality of their parents. So everywhere you're going, you need to show your nationality. The second reason to move from Soviet Union, it is the financial reason. Soviet Union, the system set everything for what you can earn, what home you can occupy, how many rooms in your home, how many square feet should be in your apartment. And even your salaries were established by government rules. And it was so kind of redistribution when a doctor, engineer, a teacher receive a salary less than a teenager who dropped from high school and after 1 or 2 months of training, making the simplest work as drill holes, will receive more than people who spent 15, 16 years in their colleges. Decision to move to United States based in addition to because my mother and my sister with her family lived at that time in United States. It was October 91 when we moved to United States. So we decided to move to them, to reunite with my family.
Do you have any desire to go back and visit where you are from?
No, I don't. Soon I will be 75. I happy living in this country, enjoying the liberty what it give, my financial independence, and to be surrounded with my family. People my friends, my former co-workers in Ukraine, in Kiev, are the same age as me or older. Some of them passed away. I cannot help them. I don't want to be advisor for them. I do not want to show them my happiness at the time when they live in poverty and in a country with political instability. The only valuable what I really missing is the graves of the beloved who left in Ukraine, in many cities, and in Russian. But I hope that my kids, my grandkids in future will visit them and pay tribute to our beloved who buried, in whom we left. I'm very proud that 5 years ago my daughter Nina, her husband, and two her daughters, Julia and Elena, on their trip to Ukraine, visited all cemeteries in Kiev and Chernihiv and paid tribute to our beloved. They took a special trip to Ruzhin, about I told before. They found all 4 mass graves in Ruzhin and paid tribute to innocent victims of Holocaust. It is my grandparents, Genach and Rosa. It is my aunt Pesci and uncle Abraham and 7 their kids. I have a picture of the monuments that stay on their graves, and I believe that this is place and the right time in the right place to tell big thanks to people of Ruzhin who till now take care about the graves, to the teachers and students of local schools who every year spend days to make improving to these graves and to keep them in good condition.
What would you say to future generations of Jews?
My family has a great history. Unfortunately, at some point we lost it. But thanks God, after moving to United States, we were able to give our grandkids Jewish education, and this allows us to restore the history of our family and to study it. And some moment we were able even to find a branch of our family in Israel, and we right now talking to these people, visiting each other, and I believe that future is very good. To keep learning about the Holocaust is necessary as a memory to people who lost their life only because they were Jewish. And to prevent future Holocaust, especially at the time that we see many try to deny existing of Holocaust and rewrite the history.
What do you say to Holocaust deniers?
I am the witness. I am one of many witnesses who know about the Holocaust not through the book, from the books and movies. I lived through the horror. The Holocaust is a tragic reality for my family and for many families which I know. My beloved grandparents, my aunt and uncle and 7 their kids were killed in Russian ghetto only because they were born Jewish. When we returned to Kiev, we found that many our neighbors, friends of our families, were killed in Babi Yar because they was not able to escape from Kiev. I met many people who has their own list of casualties from the Holocaust, and this is the reality. And all of them together is the 6 million of innocent Jewish people who were killed in this tragedy, Holocaust, only because they are born Jewish. This we need tell them, especially about this we need tell, because we have deniers of Holocaust, and we need tell this to future generation that to prevent new Holocausts. This is pictures which took Nina's family in Ruzhin when they visited the graves of our beloved. It is monuments of these graves, four graves, 3 in forest and 1 located in city. And this is the graves on what take care right now people of the Ruzhin, and this is the grave what I escaped when left Ruzhin. This is the picture of my beloved grandparents who were killed in Ruzhin, and I stayed at their house on my vacation when the Second World War begins. The difference, I were able to leave Ruzhin, they stay.